We don't need you to do something that you're not on your curve. Do what you do really good and do it well. And if that's what you have, then use it. I think what happens, people either don't know they gift, think they got too many gifts, they're not good at a lot of things. Yeah. And once you identify what you're comfortable with, man, like your gift might only bring you $50,000 a year, but guess what? At that point, you should be happy because you're giving your best every day in what you love to do that only yields $50,000 a year. But fast forward 10 years, your gift now might be valued at $500,000 because you love to do what you do and you consistently.
Hello. Welcome to another amazing knowledge bomb episode of Lead to Greatness, where we believe in helping others reach their greatest potential and together change the world. If this is your first time joining us, please consider subscribing and hit that notification bell and hit that like button. This will be greatly appreciated in helping getting out this content to great leaders and great individuals like yourself. Today on Lead to Greatness, we have Benny Pough. Benny is an author, a music executive, a mentor, and a real estate investor. Benny is an expert in the music industry, a list of countless names of individuals like Jay-Z, Kanye West, Travis Scott, Mary J. Blige, Common, Jodeci, and the list goes on and on. On today's podcast, Benny discussed a moment in his life on how a near-death experience in a car crash changed his entire life. Please help me welcome Benny with On Impact, Life, Leadership, and Vulnerability. This is Cedric Francis, and you're listening to Lead to Greatness. Hello, Benny. How you doing, sir?
Man, that's a loaded question. I'm on your show, so you know what I want to say? I'm doing great.
Amazing. Definitely glad to have you on the Lead to Greatness podcast. What I want you to do is just introduce yourself to the Lead to Greatness community. Let us know a little bit about you.
Well, Cedric, first thing I would say is, I'm a very grateful and thoughtful son, father, friend, spiritual individual, man. And most importantly, I've had an amazing journey, a lot of ups and downs, a lot of consistency. Had some success that I'm extremely proud of, and I had a lot to learn along the way as well. So, I grew up in a very diverse community, which was interesting because the kids I went to school with, we had very broad perspective. So we had the rich kids. There was truly rich kids in the school. We had the middle class kids. We had the poor kids, and then obviously we had the projects. Wow. So didn't hit the projects, but there's levels of getting from rich to projects, right? But what was most important about it was, man, that I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world, because it was truly the ground was being laid to be diverse and learn. Yes. Because you see a lot, and that's before diversity became like a real active slogan and things like so. It was great coming up.
Wow, that's amazing, because I grew up, I'm from Houston, Texas, but I grew up in low poverty areas. So I didn't really get that diversity until I joined the military. 19 years old, I went to the military, joined the Army, and I learned so much. One of the best experiences I had in my life. So I want to go back to, what did that teach you early on in your life?
Well, it just didn't make me Black. And definitely to make me white, right? Because you had to deal with both ends. My family, they in the projects, but during school, we cut in school with white kids drinking doers, right? So you learning how to play in both ends, which prepared me to be the only one in the room in many occasions, because it's all about how you're exposed. If I would have just been on one spectrum, if I'd have just hung out with my cousins in the project, then I wouldn't have had any experience on how to deal with people on the other end. If I would have just dealt with my white friends, then on the bottom, cats would be like, you know what they're gonna say? What they're gonna say. So growing up, learning how to deal with different kinds of people in different kind of settings prepared me for the opportunities that were going to come my way.
So you went to a diverse school, And so you're moving from that. So now you graduate. So let's talk about what happens then to lead you, because I mean, man, you have an amazing resume, in the studio, music industry, entrepreneurship, and real estate. I mean, I'm telling you, we can go all kind of ways with this conversation on today. But I just kind of want to start there. What kind of got you from that diversity, then graduate? What happened then?
So it's interesting, and I have a book coming out this fall called On Impact, and it kind of spells and roll my life out from 11 years old. So at 11, I was delivering newspapers, a selfish beginning. My father, when school ended at the end of the semester, end of the term, on that Friday, we would go down south. My father would ship us off down south, and we go down to my grandparents. So it didn't matter whether we got out of school on Monday, we was leaving on that Friday, or we got out on Friday, we left Friday night, chicken and Coke, right? And we took that 12, 13-hour drive, but it was a great experience, being on the farm. I had a huge family. I had 24 aunts and uncles on both sides. So, we come from that. And during the summer, everybody bring their kids down. So we had our own camp. Think about it, feeding pigs, horses, picking peas, pears, watermelons. We worked, right? We worked to mom and dad, and them came back and picked us up. So, I told my pops, like, hey, listen, that summer when I was 11, hey, Dad, if I give up my paper route, I'm not going to have a job when I return. So he was like, okay, well, you don't have to go. And that's when that changed my life. One, I learned what negotiations was about. Realized, like, having a conversation and laying out my position was important, because my pops was like, nah, it's his way or the highway. But then I realized the value of earning, and that was what opened my eyes to a lot of things. Like, I worked 7 days a week. Now, I worked from 11 years old until I was in an accident in my late 40s. So I'd never not had a job. And that's part of what we're really talking about, the experiences and the understanding of what it is to get out here and earn an income. So I was really blessed and privileged.
Wow, this is amazing. So we start off, I mean, we just started, we started off with diversity and then negotiation. And then you talked about earning. I want to talk a little bit more about earning, because there's a lot of listeners here. And I think oftentimes, especially, some of us, we come up with this concept when we're looking at entrepreneurship or we're looking at business, and we see it from a standpoint of making money. And one of the things that I learned personally that has really helped me and has added value to my life is not focusing necessarily on the money, but focusing on the value that I add to whatever customer I'm serving. I want you to kind of talk about that, your thoughts on that. And also, just really get into the concept of entrepreneurship and what does it mean to you?
Okay, so I'm a true believer of love what you do. I don't really care about the money. I'm not saying that money's not important, but money's just a tool.
Yes.
And I think our culture, and anybody listening, understanding, if you're going to commit your life to money, you're going to be unhappy in the end, because you miss so much along the way. You will. For me, it's always been important to make a difference and make a change, and also add value to wherever I've worked. I've been tenured in the music business for 30 years. You don't get there if you don't love what you do. Yeah. And I'm a consummate salesman, but I also ran a parallel business, starting real estate, and that was spawned from growing up in a 5-family house with my sister and I and my family. So it's really interesting. We were on the 5th floor. There was no insulation. So in the summers, it was really hot. And in the winters, it was really cold. And that showed me perspective on, like, how this thing called life really works. So my parents got an opportunity to buy the house from the owner. She was a single woman, older woman from Kansas. And she liked my father because he was handy. He was like the Black MacGyver. He fixed everything. He taught himself, electrical, plumbing, carpentry, all of those things. So once again, for her, it was important to, once again, you know how people talk about paying ahead?
Yeah.
She gave a Black family an opportunity who was honest, loyal, diligent family. Hey, you know what? Here, y'all buy this house. My parents didn't have the money. So what she did, since she owned it outright, she held the paper. And that means she became the bank. So they could not come up with the big deposit, but they had ownership and they wound up paying it off in a short period of time. But you know, that opened my eyes to, when we talk about entrepreneurship, it's not for everybody either.
Yeah.
You know, being an entrepreneur, I think, is overstated, but I also think it's well needed. And that's, you know, that's not talking out of both sides of your neck.
Yeah.
If you're gifted in being in an organization is where you thrive, then you should do that. You should do that. If there's something else in you that you want to do, then you should figure that out, because I'm definitely a student of 2 Plan A's. While I was working in corporate in the music business, working in corporate in the music business for 30 years, I was also building my real estate portfolio from living in the house, watching how my parents lived and had the freedom from all the units, not only just paying the mortgage, but giving us a lifestyle. So that was equally important. So I just think that people need to figure out what it is that they want and then pursue that.
Yeah. Entrepreneurship is a totally different ballgame. So I want you to speak to this. What characteristics, value, and qualities do you feel every great entrepreneur should have?
Self-starter. You have to be able to get out of the bed at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, and then go to bed at 12, 1 o'clock. Because if you don't do it, there is no Calvary. No one's coming to help you. You have to be able to nuance, figure it out, work hard, and you can't truly, in the beginning, depend on anyone but yourself. You know, all that team ball stuff is good, and you will sift through and put people in the organization with you that will help support you. But guess what? In the beginning, a lot of it's sweat equity, and you're going to be the one that's sweating all the time because you're the one who has the most at risk. And what's also equally important is being a salesperson. You have to be someone who can convey your dream for others who are willing to commit at the level that you're going to commit, and also bring them a part of the business. Like, I don't believe in, you know, it's all for me. Like, I'm a sharer, I'm a giver. So you know what? You come on in and get some. If you're giving some good work, you're going to get some good pay.
Yes, sir.
And the pay could either be monetarily, it could be wisdom, it could be equity, it could be however. Tell me what you want and let's figure it out. Let's negotiate it. Let's figure out what you need, because I need you to believe wholeheartedly in what I'm doing, when it's good and when it's bad. So honesty is really important. You definitely have to build a team, and you have to be comfortable relinquishing, knowing you can't do it all. Where people fail is that they're hoarders, information hoarders, project hoarders. Everything has to be my way. No, it doesn't work that way. What I do is cycle and recycle people who have an aptitude of understanding and know more than me. And a lot of them are kids. And like, you know, part of the thing with dealing with kids is that you also have to have wisdom in the room. You just can't have a bunch of kids because they're younger, because, you know, everybody want that smart. Yeah, that's cool. But there's a lot of smart seniors too. So you have to have a great mix and balance of people that, once again, understand your vision and where you want to go and how they can help you get there. And once you get there, we're all there together.
Benny, those are a load of knowledge bombs. And I mean, you just dropped a bunch of knowledge bombs. And I wish there's no way we can be able to unpack all of what you just said. But you just talked about teamwork. And I thought one of the things for me, I want you to speak to this. Here it is. So I started out, there's things I like to do, and there's things I don't like to do. There's things I'm good at. There's things I'm not so great at. An individual that's in that season of their life in entrepreneurship, what type of advice? Because you already mentioned it, but I just want you to kind of just unpack a little bit, because that's so much value that we need to get.
So, you know, what's really interesting? It takes me back when I first met L.A. Reid at Def Jam Records. And what was key about him, he identified in something I didn't see. I mean, I knew that I had a gift, but I didn't know what kind of gift I had. He thought of me as like probably one of the best salespersons that he'd come in contact in our business in promoting music. And in doing so, he was able to manage and direct me and say pretty much, hey, listen, what I need from you is your gift.
Yeah.
You take your gift and go to work. Your gift is very specific on what you do, and that's why we need you. We don't need you to do something that you're not on your curve. Do what you do really good and do it well. And if that's what you have, then use it. Yes. Right? I think what happens, people either don't know they gift, think they got too many gifts, right? And they're not good at a lot of things. Yeah. And once you identify what you're comfortable with, man, like your gift might only bring you $50,000 a year. But guess what? At that point, you should be happy because you're giving your best every day in what you love to do that only yields $50,000 a year. But fast forward 10 years, your gift now might be valued at $500,000 because you love to do what you do and you're consistent in what you're doing. You became an expert. So now as times have changed, things have evolved, right? You stay current on the information. You're expanding what you do because you love it. Yo, the future can't yield nothing but promise.
Oh man, that is another knowledge bomb. You mentioned something. You mentioned a big household name. You said Def Jam. You worked with some of the famous artists of today, Jay-Z, Kanye West, and Travis Scott, and so on and so on. I mean, the list goes on and on. I want you to talk about what led you down the road in this journey and how did that happen?
So when I was in college, I was doing stand-up comedy. And what was interesting, at the end of the show, the regional director of promotions for Motown Records, she was the one who booked me and asked me what my plans were. At that point, I just graduated. I hadn't really thought about what I was going to do. Hadn't prepared my resume because that's what we used to do back then. Yeah. And she asked me if I wanted to be her intern. And where we're from, nobody prepares you to be. I didn't know what an intern was, to be quite honest with you. But as a salesperson, you feel you can do any and everything. So I said, yeah, I'll be your intern. So I went down to Motown Records in my 3-piece suit, wingtips, attaché case, and everybody looked at me like I was crazy. They looked at me like I was nuts because, once again, think about, they're similar to tech companies. They're very swag, modern, the it kind of thing. So I was definitely in a perspective that I had to adapt and change. Right. So once I got into Motown, I started doing college radio promotions. And also I was doing a lot of admin work because I was a solid in that area, typed, all of those things. And I remember preparing her expenses, and I didn't even know what an expense was. So you get a check, you get these receipts, and you'd have to line everything up and make all of the sense add up. And I remember at that point, the way we were raised, you don't look at nobody's paycheck. So I remember going to her one day and I said, Miss, I'm not comfortable looking at your check. And she's like, what are you talking about? I said, you give me your check and, I'm not cool with it. She said, what are you talking about, baby? And she's like, that's not my check. I was like, well, what is it? She's like, that's the T&E. I said, okay, honestly, I don't know what T&E is either, right? She's like, traveling expenses. So, we go out every night, we eat, the company pays for that. She said, I go on trips, they pay for that. My car note, they pay for that. My insurance, they pay for that. My gas, they pay for that. My cell bill, they pay for that. My air travel, train travel, they pay for that. My cable bill, they pay for that. So at that point, I said, this is what I want to do. And that's how that's how I fell into the music business. I'm probably the only person that's fallen in. People would definitely give up their cousin. They give up a cousin, maybe not a brother or sister to get in, but they definitely give up a cousin.
Oh, man. Wow. So you went through that. So you're going through your life, and now you're in the music business. Things seem to be going fairly well or whatever. But then 2014 happened. And also you mentioned earlier, as we connect the dots here, with the book that comes out this fall is On Impact. Let's talk about On Impact, about what inspired you to write this book and why.
It's a great question because I think about it over and over again. And I realized that my purpose in the music industry, since I had no desire, and what was really important I feel I was placed here for a reason. Integrity, really important. Mentorship, really important to me. Development and sharing. And in my journey from Motown Records starting my career, then moving on to work for Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis at Perspective, and then working as a local regional in DC for Arista, then going on to MCA Records, and there's a lot of history. Casey and Casey and JoJo, all my life was a part of that. Mary J. Blige, 4 albums after the 411, worked those. Shanti's Got a Man, for those people who remember that. Shaggy, It Wasn't Me, for those people who remember that. The Wedding Classic, Jesse Powell, You broke that, right? Rasan Patterson, which is a cult, all of those things. Gave the Roots their first and only #1 record. You Got Me with Erykah Badu, Common, his first and only #1 record. With Macy Gray, The Light. And then moving on to Def Jam and being a part of, one of the historic runs in the music business with a lot of great artists that came through from Rihanna. She came in, Young Jeezy, Rick Ross, Neo, Justin Bieber, Mariah Carey, The Emancipation of Mimi, Lionel Richie, his last #1 was with us is well. And one that I'm extremely proud of, FLY Swag Surf, which is, it's a historical Black college classic. And in doing so, having an opportunity to move over to Epic Records and bringing in some really heavyweight star talent. Future was one that brought to the company, and Yo Gotti. We also had Travis Scott and a lot of those things. So and developed like countless executives along the way. Giving people who look like us an opportunity was really important for me, and teaching them. It's not just about giving Black people a job, it's about giving them an education, right? And sharing the information. So I'll give you the short version of what transpired. In 2014, a friend of mine asked me to come to a barbecue. I told him yes. And calls me again on that Thursday. He asked me on that Tuesday if I wanted to come, and I said yes. Again, that Saturday, I flew down to Charlotte, North Carolina, to visit my sister in Columbia, which is an hour and a half away. Watch my nephew play football. Then we drove up to Orangeburg, which is an hour away from Columbia, and celebrated my father's 70th birthday. My mother had Alzheimer's, so I had some time to spend with her. Left the next day, which was the 31st, and drove back to Charlotte. And there was a misty rain while I was at the airport, which delayed the flight for about an hour and a half. My friend calls, asked me, "You're still coming?" I said, yes. Get into New York now, I'm running about an hour and a half late, and I have a meeting in New York City. So I drive from LaGuardia to Manhattan, have my meeting, call my wife and tell her I don't want to take the convertible because it just didn't feel right. And I want my youngest daughter in the back car in a vulnerable position. So I get home, pick them up. We're driving to my friend's house, and he calls. We're 20 minutes outside from his house. Are we still coming? Was like, yes, almost there. So when we get inside, the reason why he had been so persistent, I thought we were coming to a cookout. But what he did, he'd cater for both of the families, which was really sweet. And that's why he'd been calling. So 4 adults, 3 bottles of wine, we sitting down, we walk out, he and I catching up. We walk out to the deck. We're sitting there having conversation, catching up on all the things that have happened, both good and bad, in our lives. And the last since the last time we've seen each other, that misty rain happens again. And needless to say, whether he said or I said, "Hey, let's take a ride." He just bought a new 550 Mercedes Benz. We walk from the deck through the kitchen into the carport, get in the car. He backs out. Jumps out of the car, runs in, gets a cigar, gets back in, drives down. The women and the children come, watches as we pull down his driveway, which is about the length of the city block. I don't know why Black folks do that, but we're gonna figure that out one day. We all like watching people pull off in cars, right? But that's a Southern thing. Open He opens the gate, turns the car right. I'm about to make a call and I hear a thump. Car takes off. So I cut my eyes and I look at the odometer and it's like 75 miles an hour. Wow. So now I turn my head and he's passed out with his foot on the accelerator. So the first thing I do is what we've always been disciplined to do is talk to God. And I said, Lord, I guess I'm not going to see my family anymore because I just walked you through everybody that I've seen. And my wife and daughter standing in the yard. Second thing I say is, Lord, I guess I'm going to see you soon because you come into grips with your mortality real quick. And the third thing, I got mad with God because I didn't want to die today. And if I knew I was going to die, I wouldn't have came to the barbecue, right? But I thought about all of the things that I was going to miss, all the celebrations. There would be no more celebrations. Who's going to pour wisdom into my sons and daughters? Who's going to marry my girls? My wife, she wasn't prepared for this moment. And who's going to take care of my mom? Because, I took care of her care while she was going through that. So we started veering off the road, hitting bushes and trees. And finally we hit an obstruction in the road that shoots across the road. And we hit an oak at about 90 miles an hour. And I sustained a level 2 concussion, which is when you black out between 1 and 5 minutes, L3, L4 vertebrae fracture, bulging disc in my back. We hit the tree so hard that it lacerated my liver and I lost half my blood supply. And we hit the seatbelt, severed 2 feet of my small intestine. And in that moment, God put a book inside me called On Impact. And Impact is an acronym for intuition, mastery, pivot, authenticity, connection, and teamwork. And what it does, it takes you through my journey from 11 years old delivering newspaper to modern day with an undercurrent of music. And at the end of each chapter is a hit list of takeaways from the chapter. Pretty much, if Benny can do it, I can do it too.
What do you wish you would have known before the accident that you learned afterwards?
The value of time. I wasted a lot of time in my life, and it could have been things I thought were valuable, but they weren't. Whether hanging out too late, going to see a friend that don't really care about you, going to a dinner with some people that nothing's going to come out of it, business or personal. Really understand like how precious time is, because life and death happens in an instant, right? You pass through that canal, you come alive, right? And when the clock ends, you expire. And everything in the middle is what matters, but it really does matter. Yeah. So my takeaway from that instance, as I walked you through, my life literally changed in 5 minutes. Yes. I went from whatever I was doing, whoever I was, to that was broken, crashed, changed. Everything what I was isn't anymore. Who I thought I was couldn't save me in that car. How much money I had couldn't save me, wouldn't bring me back. No matter what it is, no matter who you think you are, you not when it's your time. Yeah. Obviously, it wasn't my time, but it was my time to pivot. It was my time to change. It was my time to understand, how vulnerable I am. I'm not in control. You understand? I thought I was in control of everything because I was in control of everything. Till you not. Never give up. I mean, we hear those things and apply principle to it. If it's important to you, then it's important to you. Yeah. Sometimes people are just not going to believe in you. Your family may not believe in you. Your friends may not believe in you, right? But you have to trust in your God and you have to trust in yourself. And then that's where the work starts. And ideally, if you're comfortable being where you are, then be comfortable. Don't let nobody tell you, that's not, you can be better than that. If you think you better, then you better. Live this life, because you know what? Life is too precious. Stop chasing things, right? That don't matter. Stop buying things that don't matter. Stop dreaming about things that, don't matter. Live the life of importance. Live a wholesome, clean, spiritual life and enjoy it. Each day and each moment is precious. This is coming from somebody who nearly lost his life in a second. So I know the value of a minute. I know the value of an hour. I know the value of a day and a week and a month and a year. I know that. So everyone doesn't have to hit a tree at 90 miles an hour to have an impact in your life. You can make the impact yourself by just believing in yourself.
Yes. Benny, thank you for dropping so much knowledge on us on today, some life knowledge. You have a great book that's coming out on Impact. We can pre-order right now. So I want you to, if someone wants to connect with you and what you're doing, where should they go? But also where they can get information to pre-order this book.
So it's wherever you buy your books, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, et cetera, et cetera. You can reach me at all my socials are at Benny Pough on all platforms. And also you can come visit my website at bennypough.com.
So Benny, thank you so much. I'm definitely going to get the book. Are you going to be on Audible as well?
Yes, sir. I already just finished it.
For all the busy entrepreneurs and leaders that you may not have time to just sit down, but you can listen, or you love to listen while you're in your car and while you're, waiting, for that meeting or whatever. This is great. Mm-hmm. So you can also lead the. So it sounds like the book is going to be read by you.
Absolutely.
Yes. Definitely. I'm getting this and pre-ordering. Great. So September 27th, the book will be releasing. So definitely get the book. On behalf of the Lead to Greatness community, I want to thank you so very much for taking time out of your busy schedule and adding value to us all.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
And don't forget to subscribe to Lead to Greatness if this is your first time. And this podcast was helpful to you, leave a big thumbs up. And also, I want you to check out our Marriage Coach podcast, the podcast with my wife and I. If you're on iTunes, please rate this podcast and leave a review and help get the word out. Again, thank you, Lead to Greatness Nation, for joining us on today. Looking forward to seeing you again on next week. Till then, remember, if you help others reach their greatest potential, together we can change the world. Peace. We out.